It's 8 o'clock, and welcome to yet another session of surgical clinics of Calicut. And to present an interesting case of chronic pancreatitis, we have with us Dr. Prathapan, who is welcome, Dr. Pari. We're just waiting for you. And Dr. Prathapan will be presenting. He's the chief of surgical gastroenterology at the Medical College Calicut. Prathapan, your time starts now.
Good evening, members of LGS, Patta Radhakrishnan sir, dear Pari, Shankar, Elanko. Today, I'm here as an MCH candidate appearing for surgical exam, the final examination, because I have not operated this patient. I'm just presenting a case for the final opinion from the house. So this is a case of chronic pancreatitis, a surgeon's dilemma. So chronic pancreatitis, as you all know, is a syndrome involving progressive inflammatory changes in the pancreas that result in permanent structural damage, which can lead to impairment of exocrine and endocrine function. So they can present in various ways, as you may see as an incidental finding, or they may present with abdominal pain, or diabetes mellitus or its complications, or they may present with general ill health or fat intolerance or symptoms arising out of complications like obstruction of bile duct, duodenum, or they may present with disruption of pancreatic duct like pleural effusion, pancreatic ascites, infection, etc. So we have an interesting entity among the chronic calcific pancreatitis. We call it by name tropical calcific pancreatitis. It's a juvenile form of chronic pancreatitis. It is of non-alcoholic variant, which is very common in our part of country. We have some distinctive features like younger age at onset, presence of large intraductal calculi. There is an accelerated course of the disease leading to diabetes or steatorrhea, and there is a high susceptibility to cancer. So you can have the comparison of tropical pancreatitis and alcoholic pancreatitis. Now I'm going to the case proper. I'm presenting a case of a 44-year-old female. She presented with recurrent abdominal pain since 15 months, and there is a worsening of her symptoms since last 4 months. She underwent initial evaluation from local hospital and detected to have features of chronic pancreatitis, and she was put on medication. This is the last 6 months history. She developed high-colored urine and scleral icterus since 1 month and referred to our center. She was having loss of appetite and loss of weight since last 6 months. She lost around 8 kilograms. She is diabetic for the last 7 years, was on OHA. She is detected to have an RBS value of 490 at the onset of current symptoms and started on insulin. History of steatorrhea was there since 1 year. It was controlled by dietary change and some medications. There was no history of any malignancy, but pancreatic cancer, but father died of gastric cancer. There's no known case of any pancreatic pathology in family members. So on examination, patient was weighing around 45 kilograms. She was jaundice. There is no evidence of generalized lymph node enlargement. The liver was firm, palpable, feeling like something like a mass, and palpable gallbladder was there. There was an ill-defined mass in the epigastrium. There were no demonstrable deposits or umbilical nodule, no free fluid. So these are the lab values. Patient is having HB of 10.9 with an MCV of 80. Total count was 7,100. Differential count 73% neutrophil and 20% lymphocyte. Platelet was 3.34 lakhs. The INR was 1.3. RBS 490. HbA1c was around 11.4. That shows she was having poorly controlled diabetes. Then RFT value showed a blood urea of 10 and a creatinine of 0.6. She initial LFT values were 5.1 plus 2.3. It was changed to 7.1 to 3.1 in 5 days time, and again it increased to 9.1 to 3.8 today. The albumin again, it was 6. Now it is only total protein was 6, and now it has become 5.3, and albumin has become 2.4. The alkaline phosphatase, you see this increase in alkaline phosphatase. So first time I am seeing an alkaline phosphatase value of around 1,700 in a patient with obstructive jaundice. The lipids and amylase were within normal limit, and CA19 value was 273.2 units per ml. So she came with a CT taken from outside. This is the plain CT, which shows some calcifications, no definite fluid collections and all. So the contrast CT shows an evolving cystic lesion in the area of pancreatic head neck region. Gallbladder is not much distended, no intrahepatic biliary radical dilatation. So these are the CT report. This is the initial CT. So from this CT, can we proceed to any surgical decision making, or shall we do any other investigation? Dr. Pari.
Yeah, can you show the CT actual slides again?
This was the plain CT. This was not of a very good quality CT. It's taken from a local hospital.
Please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, so no liver SOLs, no evidence of ascites.
Pradhapan, how will you summarize the history in 4 sentences?
So a patient without a long-standing history suggestive of chronic pancreatitis developing recent worsening of symptoms of chronic pancreatitis and developing jaundice all of a sudden.
With a high alkaline.
Yeah, very high alkaline phosphate.
And loss of weight appetite.
Loss of weight appetite.
Okay.
So from the history, it's highly likely that she is harboring some malignancies, and with the CT showing only evidence of calcific pancreatitis without any definite mass, they're described. This is the other cut, the sections, sagittal sections. So you can see there is evidence of chronic calcific pancreatitis. Nothing else. So this is taken in April 2021. Exactly April 13th. This is almost 2 months today. So the CT report they gave like this: liver enlarged, shows focal areas of parenchymal hypoattenuation, suggestive of focal fat sparing. No intrahepatic biliary radical dilatations, no focal lesions. Gallbladder not distended, CBD not dilated. There is mild splenomegaly, and pancreas shows nodular calcific areas in the head and uncinate process. It's dilated fluid-filled cystic areas measuring around 1 to 3 centimeter. Body and tail atrophic, peripancreatic fat stranding noted around the head region, and large calcific areas seen abutting the duodenum. So this was the report given by the initial CT.
We'll go to Dr. Pari now, and Shankar, then Baiju to comment.
Yeah. So the CT was done outside, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know, because from whatever few cuts I saw, I thought I saw a non-enhancing or hypo-enhancing lesion in the head of pancreas, apart from that cystic lesion. Am I right? There's also an area
Yes,
which is non-enhancing.
Actually, I also thought like that. No?
Okay. So the most crucial thing here is good proper CT scan. In our practice, what I would do is, at this point, I'll ask proper CECT with PET. Because now most of the times, whenever I'm suspecting a malignancy and if I have to get a CT scan, I always do a CECT PET. And then I'll ask them to run the perfusion software. Perfusion software for the pancreas. So I think we get a lot of information. One, it's a proper CT scan. And then with the perfusion images, we can know whether the area in doubt is having a higher perfusion or lower perfusion. And then obviously, if there is any metastasis, all those information we can get. So if I had to go on this case, I'd probably ask for a proper PET CECT with perfusion images.
Now, before we go to Shankar, Pari, regarding the role of PET-CT in chronic pancreatitis, is it one of the modalities when you suspect a malignancy in chronic pancreatitis? Because chronic pancreatitis in itself, doesn't it light up in PET-CT?
Suppose if I see a suspicious area and I also see a metastasis elsewhere, I know what I'm dealing with.
No, okay.
The problem here, Pari, can I add? The problem here is this patient has got a very high blood sugar values and poorly controlled diabetes.
Yeah.
So on a background of this sort of diabetes, I think the PET-CT or PET imaging may be a little difficult.
Sugar,
what you're saying is right, but what is required is a good control on the day of PET. It doesn't necessarily mean that if the 3 months control was bad, you can't do a PET. On the day of PET, you probably have to treat the patient for 1 or 2 days, control the sugar. On the day of PET, the sugar has to be pretty well controlled. It has to be less than 200. I agree to that point. Because many times, I agree, for chronic pancreatitis, PET-CT is not the investigation of choice. But suppose it throws us an image of a metastasis, because it's the head of pancreas mass. Very good chance that you may find some metastasis.
Shankar.
Okay.
Oh, welcome. Thiru is there. I'll ask Thiru to talk next. Yeah, Shankar.
Sir, since the clinical suspicion of malignancy is very high, I fully agree with Dr. Pari that my preferred investigation will be a PET scan. As far as your question, whether chronic pancreatitis PET scan will have some false positive value, I don't think so, sir. You have a problem of PET scan only in an acute pancreatitis where there is an active inflammation. In a burnt out gland, especially in a chronic pancreatitis, PET is a useful investigation, especially to when you have a suspicion of malignancy. Because in a pancreatic protocol CT, it's very difficult to differentiate, identify the small focus of malignancy, which can be hiding somewhere in between the chunky calcifications. So, in fact, one of my postgraduate has done a dissertation on role of PET in chronic pancreatitis with suspicion of malignancy. So, it's a very useful investigation, and I would prefer PET scan. And to the point of diabetes, once again, I agree with Pari that it is not the long-term control of diabetes that is important. On the day of PET scan, you should get the sugar value. So you can always give insulin and get the sugar under control and do a PET scan. Obviously, you should not do a PET scan when the sugar values are high. Yeah.
Dr.
I fully agree with Dr. Pari and Shankar, especially what Pari has said, the perfusion images, cuts, will definitely tell us whether there is any hypodense or an hyperdense lesion, which will take you further, even if you want to take a targeted biopsy or do an endo ultrasound and a biopsy. If you are lucky enough to locate a focus, it will be useful. For that, PET-CT will be much better in this scenario.
But what exactly is perfusion thing? Because I never seen that before.
Basically,
available in every institution?
Yeah, it should be available. So it's not a big deal. Basically, you need to get a proper pancreas protocol CT scan done, and they got software which will show areas of good vascularity in a different color and areas of poor vascularity in a different color. So, and typically the pancreatic malignancies are hypovascular. Suppose, and so the hypovascular areas will show a different color, and but the other areas will show different colors. So it does help to locate areas, suspicious areas. Sometimes you may be helped with the perfusion images where the color will show whether it's a malignancy or not. It's not a very big deal. It's only that the radiologists have to have the software and apply that. And you have to have a good 1 mm pancreas protocol cuts.
Pradhaman, there are a couple of questions. One is CA99 and CEA in this patient.
I have given the CA99 value. It's 275. It is high. It is 275.
I mean, is there, in a word about CA99 to the faculty, can it differentiate between the malignancy and chronic pancreatitis, the CA99? Like very cut-off values?
Sir, there were many studies using CA99. In fact, one study by Stanley Medical College, I think is done by the Jaswant unit. They have shown a value of 127 along with the dilated bile duct, along with the dilated pancreatic duct, has got a very high sensitivity and specificity for diagnosing malignancy in chronic pancreatitis. But if the patient is having jaundice or cholangitis, or even in some patients with chronic pancreatitis, we can have very high values sometimes. But a value around 1,500 or more than 1,000 is almost always suggestive of a malignant process, that too a disseminated type of pancreatic cancer.
Shankar?
Okay.
Pradhaban, I think Dr. H. Ramesh has published his data.
That is 300.
His value is 300. Yeah.
300.
So actually, there's another question as to how to explain obstructive jaundice with no IHBRD and no dilated CBD.
No, this was the CT taken 2 months back when she presented for the first time with worsening of pain. She is having jaundice since 1 month only. So at that time, there was no jaundice.
Okay. Pari, next, what is the...
Yeah.
Pari wants a...
Yeah,
SCG.
CA99 is elevated, but in such cases, I would rather see a couple of the trend of the CA99s because
Okay. No, okay. Since we don't have PET scan or PET CT in our department, we repeated the CT. So this was the new CT. So this is the plain image. Then you can see the contrast images.
We'll start with Pari again.
No, I was just mentioning about CA99s.
No, yeah, I think this is a repeat CT, latest CT program.
Yeah, repeat CT. I didn't do a PET. I did a contrast enhancing good quality CT.
Did the PT run through your mind?
Pradhaban, if you don't have PET scan, another option is to do an MRI, where you have an option of doing a diffusion weighted sequences, which once again will tell you whether there is a suspicious malignant mass lesion there. Obviously, this CT scan shows an increase in the size of the pseudocyst or something like that, and there is a suspicious hypodense lesion involving the head of the pancreas. Those are all my findings I could appreciate.
Pari?
Yeah, same, sir. Nothing more. And there is some IHBR developing, especially central IHBR is getting dilated. Yeah, now IHBR is there. And there is a definite hypodensity in the head of pancreas.
You have hypodensity.
What will that suggest? Say, in case, what will that suggest? Does it suggest the malignancy is grown big? Or it's some cystic neoplasm? Or is it just a pseudocyst in a chronic pancreatitis? Imaging wise.
In this cut, there is a, sir,
Yeah.
In this cut, there is an interesting finding, the fourth one. Any
Some, what is that? One stone, is there a CBD? Is there a CBD?
No. No, I thought it's a CBD, but that was in the cystic duct.
Okay.
So there was a stone in the dilated cystic duct. But my question is, in a patient with atrophic pancreas, will the tumor be hypervascular or hypovascular? Compared to the rest of pancreas? Because when you have very atrophied pancreas, fat replaced pancreas, if you see an area of contrast intake, that may be a sign of a malignancy. That is what I thought in this case. You can see the fourth image showing some area of contrast enhancement. That may be the area
Irregular
of
area, yes.
yeah, irregular areas. So not like the de novo pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma in patients with chronic pancreatitis and fat replaced pancreas, an area of contrast intake may suggest a malignancy. This is one practical point I have to tell the residents.
Yeah, a comment, Pari?
No, I'm not aware of that.
No, that fourth picture showing the periphery slightly enhancing. That
Yeah.
cystic, can you, I mean,
Is it, I would think the other way. It's not that the periphery is enhancing, the center part is hypo-enhancing. That's what I would think. The
okay.
center part, according to me, is enhancing less than the periphery. That is that center part which is very doubtful to me.
The point in favor to say that it could be a malignancy is there is a peripheral enhancement. Also, there is enhancement inside. When you compare the other cystic lesion when there is only a peripheral live tissue. When you compare these two, there are uptakes inside also. So we cannot straight away say that it is only an evolving pseudocyst. So we'll have to have a suspicion of malignancy in such enhancements whenever there is an atrophic pancreas by the side. That's what I would like to say.
Shankar?
I totally agree with you, sir. I think that is the
Yeah,
correct observation you made.
I also, the mass lesion is very obvious, and because of the hypodensity in the center, it looks like there are elements of hypovascular areas, which suggest malignancy. So I would, at this point of time, I will go for an endoscopic ultrasound guided biopsy.
No, but if you see the other two cuts, you know, it looks like pseudocyst, which is a uniform wall. Only the last cut only lights up and makes it look different.
Probably that is where
Yes.
the malignancy starts.
Okay, Pari, yeah.
The other 2 or 3 lesions are looking like a pseudocyst.
Pseudocyst only, but this lesion is definitely suspicious. We'll have to go for an endo ultrasound and then take the tissue for biopsy of fluid and analyze it. We'll have to do that. We
Pardon?
cannot simply say it because the other cuts are not showing it. We cannot brush it aside because this cut is quite in favor of some doubt.
There, in the second image, if you see that cystic lesion, there is a, is it a calculus or a some vessel in the second lesion at the
No.
top at 12
No,
o'clock?
it's a calcification. It's a calcification, yeah.
You didn't see
It's a-
such a big
No,
calcification.
you're talking about this party.
So
what I'm
second
showing-
image,
The
second.
second image, what I'm showing, the one, which is around
No, we can't
Between
see what you're showing, sir.
between 12 and 1 o'clock position.
12, yeah, around 12 o'clock position.
That's calcification. I will show you the plain image. You can see the stones there. I think that's a stone.
Okay.
So stone is displaced towards the periphery of
Now,
that lesion.
if I can ask everyone, is a displaced stone is a suggestive malignancy in chronic pancreatitis?
Yes.
Yes,
I
very
agree
much,
with
very
that.
much, very much.
Displaced stone.
And then at the 6
A
o'clock position, there
disappearing
is some-
stone also.
at 6 o'clock position, there is, it's not a smooth wall cyst. At 6 o'clock position, there is some soft tissue lesion
Enhancement,
cutting into
yeah.
the
Yes.
cyst. And I would like to see the Hounsfield unit of that cyst, whether it is actually cyst or a solid component which is not enhancing. That's also other thing which you would usually see. And if it is a cyst, I'll be surprised that stone is on the top. If I'm not sure whether it's a stone which is stuck there, if it's, I don't know, you will see such a big stone inside the duct rather than the parenchyma. So I'm still missing something. I feel I'm missing something there.
I'm also thinking like that. So that's
So,
why.
Pradhapan, one possibility is this could be that could be a small rupture in the pancreatic duct where the stone can come out, and you have it could be an evolving pancreatic ascites also, because I feel the stone has come out of the pancreatic ductal system and it's getting collected extra pancreatically. That's one possibility.
Now, if I can ask everyone, what will happen to the stone pattern in chronic pancreatitis when a malignancy occurs? Will there be any distortion? What are the changes
Yeah.
that can happen?
So I'm coming to it in the discussion part. Anyway, there will be displaced stones in a patient developing mass in a background of chronic pancreatitis. So the mass lesions will push the stones peripherally, and you may see those stones.
So that's why it's
So
important to get the ounce per unit of that cyst, whether it's actually fluid or solid.
there are solid elements as well as fluid elements. That is what I feel. There are enhancing mural nodules as well
At
in
6
the
o'clock, yeah.
cystic, 6 o'clock. So this is the area which made me suspect coexisting other conditions in this patient. So I'm not sure whether there is.
So what next?
So these are the images, and you can see the cyst actually aberts the confluence of this superior mesenteric vein, splenic vein confluence. And there is no actual infiltration demonstrated in the CT. The CT is taken the first week of June. So this is the final thing. That stone is still inside the duct or inside the pancreas only, Dr. Shankar.
Okay.
So this was the report.
Shankar, you can't see you.
I'll switch on it, sir.
Okay. So a relatively well-defined, enhancing, solid cystic lesion in the region of head and neck of pancreas with loss of fat planes with D1 segment of duodenum and infiltration of suprapancreatic CBD with upstream biliary dilatation on a background of atrophic pancreas and dilated PD. Possibility of malignant pancreatic neoplasm to be considered. That was the report given by the CT. The lesion is closely abutting the region of confluence of portal vein and splenic vein with the compression and luminal narrowing, but no intraluminal extension. There is a cystic duct calculus, that is one shown in the image. There is bilobar ISBRD, no focal lesions, and borderline splenomegaly. So diagnosis.
Yeah, Pari?
I'm not sure. I have a diagnosis. There is a very strong suspicion that the patient has developed malignancy in the background of chronic calcific pancreatitis. But I wouldn't be still sure. We need more investigation, like either a CE, MRI, or a ultrasound EOS guided biopsy of the solid neural nodule which we are seeing. So strong suspicion of malignancy is there. Not very sure, but I can't be 100% sure.
I have a question again here. Is there any time duration that chronic pancreatitis should be existent for this long a period to develop malignancy? Like in cirrhosis?
No, sir. Incidence of malignancy will increase with the duration of illness. So in patients with chronic pancreatitis, if they develop malignancy when they have a duration around 10 years to 15 years time. So around 1.8 to 4% of patients will develop malignancy in duration. They say it is 10 to 15 years on follow-up. But some patients will suddenly develop malignancy and present for the first time with malignancy without any previous existing history of any existing chronic pancreatitis. So we are having around 700 or so patients now. I think I am seeing some of the malignancies on follow-up. So I think definitely there is a high incidence of malignancy compared to the alcoholic type of pancreatitis. So tropical pancreatitis, the incidence is malignancy of is the incidence of malignancy is higher.
So regarding duration, Shankar, duration of chronic pancreatitis.
Yes, sir. Duration, any time beyond 10 years is a high risk for malignancy, and the incidence of malignancy differs according to the etiological factor. If it's an alcoholic pancreatitis, it is less than 4%. If it is a tropical calcific pancreatitis, it is around 5 to 10%. And if it is a hereditary pancreatitis, the incidence can be as high as 50%. So the highest chance of malignancy, you get it in hereditary pancreatitis. Of course, what we see in clinical practice is tropical calcific pancreatitis, and the typical G. Verghese description of tropical calcific pancreatitis is you have pain in the adolescent age group and diabetes in the adulthood, and in middle age you have malignancy. So that's the temporal profile of the disease progression in tropical calcific pancreatitis.
Is this tropical pancreatitis?
I think so, sir. There is no history of any pancreatic illness in the family, and in a female patient with a large stones occupying the main pancreatic duct. I think the other types of pancreatitis may not have this much large stones, and the family history is very important. We are seeing similar illnesses in the family, but whether it is due to the environmental factors or through genetic disorder, I'm not sure.
Pari?
Yes, sir. I think it's a tropical kind of pancreatitis because it's a huge stone. It's almost a boulder, the pancreas. So I think it's a tropical calcific pancreatitis. And regarding the duration, I'm absolutely agreeing with Dr. Shankar. Its incidence is maximum with hereditary pancreatitis, and at least 10 to 20 years of pancreatitis in tropical TCPs. That's when we see the malignant change.
Effectively, this patient is tropical pancreatitis without symptoms. She come only symptoms last few months. Maybe at the onset of malignancy developed symptoms.
And again, it's classical for TCP. Many of them are totally asymptomatic. Do a CT scan, you see huge boulders, but many of them are asymptomatic. Again, that's a point in favor of tropical calcific pancreatitis.
She was diabetic since 7 years.
Again.
One more. What is your comment? Yeah. How to manage? Yeah, I think we'll start with Pari again.
Very difficult. So the main problem, I just lost track. So the main problem is pain or jaundice? I'm sorry, I lost track.
Main problems are pain and jaundice. She had worsening of symptoms in the form of pain. Later, she developed jaundice.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, I will like to do because the malignancy suspicion is strong. As we already discussed, I like to do a PET CT scan. If it's a metastatic malignancy, then it's a straightforward thing of needing to stent the patient and manage the pain. If it's not a metastatic malignancy, then probably I'll have to see the CT scan whether it is resectable. And if it's a resectable lesion, then probably both of them are well managed by a resection. What sort of a resection, all those things, a good CT scan will answer. But with this CT scan, I'm not very sure whether it is resectable or what sort of resection we need.
Shankar?
Yes, sir. So the CT scan obviously shows a large mass in the head of the pancreas. And apart from that, the two large cystic lesions that looks like something like a pseudocyst for me. So definitely I will go for a PET scan and make sure that it is not a metastatic disease. And then I'll also plan for an endoscopic ultrasound guided biopsy to confirm the diagnosis of that head lesion. And as Pari was telling, if I could pick up metastasis elsewhere, then it becomes a palliation. Otherwise, I'll keep surgery still in the table of modalities of treatment for this patient. But obviously, we know that surgery for pancreatic cancer in the background of chronic pancreatitis carries a poor prognosis. And especially right now, we cannot go for surgery because there are some cystic lesions there, maybe a pseudocyst. So as we are waiting, I'll try to do a stenting of the biliary system and then take it from there.
Now, I have a question again. Dr. Thiru and Shankar, they all feel that endo ultrasound guide, isn't it big enough? We can do percutaneous biopsy.
No, it carries two problems are here. This patient has got a dilated system. Can it be a pseudocyst or it can be a dilated duct itself? So if you try to do aspiration or percutaneously, they can have obvious pancreatic ascites or pancreatic leak. Second problem, you can have needle tracking, and patient can have dissemination if it is not already there. Regarding Shankar's doubt about the metastatic disease, the CA19N value is around 273, and I have seen most of the patient with the metastatic disease a value above 500. With a value of 270, okay, you can have, but the metastatic disease is unlikely. Second issue, when you have an acute episode of pancreatitis on a background of chronic pancreatitis, still you can have elevated CA19N value.
Thiru sir,
Definitely, I am against a CT guided or whatever it is, which is transcutaneous. Even in another meeting, I had a little difference of opinion with one of my professor itself. I feel if you have got a facility to do an endo ultrasound, when such a big lesion, I think you will be able to easily pick up what is going on. I am not in favor of a transcutaneous at all, because what is resectable now, what is operable now, by a seedling through the needle track may make it not possible scientifically.
but Shankar, is there any literature to suggest needle tracking of percutaneous pancreatic malignancy biopsies?
No, sir, I think I'm not aware of any literature and all, but it's quite scientific that with the availability of endoscopic ultrasound, we have to go internally only. And the more important than the seedling, which is a theoretical problem, more important is you will not, when you do percutaneous biopsies, you'll end up in a duodenal injury, you can have a pancreatic fistula. So all these things are obviated if you do a endoscopic ultrasound, and obviously you like to have the transducer very close to the tumor and target the biopsy. And especially if you practice Rose protocol, sampling will be very good, and results are also good. So I don't think we have to debate whether you have to do an endoscopic ultrasound guided biopsy or a CT guided biopsy. CT guided biopsy is not at all recommended.
Okay, Pari, any point? Yes, sir. Thiru, sir.
Until and otherwise, you condemn the patient for surgery. You're only going to take the patient for palliation.
Right.
Then you require a tissue diagnosis to put what palliation you'll have to. That is the only situation when the endo ultrasound is not helping you out. If you decided that this patient is inoperable, for the purpose of palliative therapy, you can do a CT guided biopsy. Otherwise, CT guided biopsy has got no. I want a question. I've got a doubt now with Radha. Actually, if you want to do a neoadjuvant therapy for a borderline malignancy, if you are not able to get the tissue through the endo ultrasound, what will you suggest? This doubt, now and then I used to have it. Shall we take a CT guided biopsy and then go ahead with this?
So the reason why I am putting these questions in between is we have a fair amount of audience who are postgraduates, and examination, these are the questions that are, the examination will be on these lines only. Whether you do percutaneous or, and frankly, again, see, how often can we hit the malignancy in a chronic pancreatitis induced? See, it's quite difficult, both imaging wise, even percutaneously, even in endo ultrasound wise, which is the sample tissues, is not so easy.
Now that, what I would like to say, now that there is an enhancing lesion in the head of the pancreas and is very close to the duodenum, I think an endo ultrasound will yield result.
Okay. The next question, yes, sir. Next question, Pari, again, is how often you find liver metastasis in patients who develop malignancy in chronic pancreatitis? You are you're optimistic that PET-CT shows mitosis, our job becomes easy.
Any CA pancreas, they got a propensity to present with metastasis rather than periampullary carcinomas. So I would say it's not.
Betting the splenic vein and SMV. Calcification is seen in the head of pancreas, body and tail atrophic. And the fluid analysis surprisingly showed an amylase value of 600, lipase around 150, CA again high, CA99 is again high, and few atypical cells. No definite diagnosis of malignancy they could make out using this fluid analysis.
Now, Prathapan, they have done a aspiration from the solid lesion or from the cystic lesion?
No, it was the cyst with targeting the solid that I think may not be possible in this situation, because in the other aspect of the pseudocyst, the solid areas predominantly seen. So they could not target the mural nodules. That's what I suspect.
No, then there is no point in
the
doing an
word
endoscopic
mural
ultrasound.
nodules, you're bringing in another diagnosis.
No, sir. So there are mural nodule, the solid and cystic areas. You know, that is what they says in the endoscopic ultrasound. The issue is when you do endoscopic ultrasound and if you don't get a definite diagnosis, and if these patients are planned for non-operating type of treatment like adjuvant treatment, what is the method of getting biopsy? That again is an issue, because here there is a pseudocyst, there is evidence of a lesion in the head of pancreas. Most of the time we may not be operating straight away. These patients have highly likelihood of malignancy and they may require neoadjuvant treatment. So how to target these cases, that's a very important issue in clinical practice.
Yeah, we'll start with Pari again.
Are we straight away taking it as a borderline malignancy?
No, sir. The issue in this case, whether that solid cystic area represents coexisting pseudocyst or the actual pancreatic mass, that is a important issue. I think the surface of the mass in that area doesn't show like a malignant behavior. It shows just pushing type of behavior, which you see in some of the cystic neoplasms as well. So I think it's not a borderline malignancy from the available images, but there is pseudocyst-like picture, and there is a rapid increase in size of that lesion. Within 2 months, this patient has got a big size lesion in that area. I think
one thing about that increased size in the lesion is not due to a bleed or a sudden increase. It is not showing a typical hypotension.
It doesn't show features of bleed. I think that on-spill unit is not fitting with the bleed. It can be only fluid with the solid areas. But the solid areas are attached to the cyst wall. That is not suggesting bleeding. It suggests a neoplastic etiology.
Again,
it
one
is
more
most
question
likely
I'll ask Shankar. Shankar, do you get cystic neoplasms in chronic pancreatitis?
So I can't tell. I mean, usually the malignancy that we get is an ductal adenocarcinoma, but I'm not sure about whether there is an increased incidence of cystic neoplasm or incidence is same like any other general population.
It could be an obstruction of the pancreatic duct with the activation of pancreatic tissue causing a pancreatitis and a pseudocyst rather than a lesion arising in the cystic lesion.
Sir, another answer to your question is when you're talking about chronic pancreatitis and cystic neoplasm, there is a lot of confusion between many times IPMN has been wrongly diagnosed as a chronic pancreatitis. And we have seen cases of IPMN coexisting with chronic pancreatitis. So IPMN is one entity which can be wrongly diagnosed as a chronic pancreatitis. So that is the one association I can think about. Yeah.
So this is the question which I put: CCP with adenocarcinoma versus CCP with IP. Yes, sir?
I haven't seen your slides, just preempted here.
So the role of biopsy: percutaneous biopsy, high false negative rates; EUS guided biopsy, variable false negative rate; issues with non-diagnostic sample. Study by Fischer and Ravens, they have shown normal pancreatic parenchyma and a local mass. They have shown 89% sensitivity and 100% specificity and 92% accuracy in de novo pancreatic cancer. But in patients with chronic pancreatitis and a mass, the sensitivity is to the tune of 54% and specificity 100% and accuracy is 91%. Imaging has an important role in predicting behavior of mass in CCP. Just a second. So biopsy may not help in patients with chronic calcific pancreatitis and a mass, because you may not be targeting the mass, you may be targeting the chronic pancreatitis tissue. There are incidents of ampullary tumors arising on a background of CCP again. So they may obstruct the pancreatic duct. They can produce the duct obstructing type of pancreatitis with the coexisting chronic pancreatitis. Or you can have IPMN type of presentation in chronic pancreatitis and chronic pancreatitis like presentation in IPMN. Because in IPMN, some of these mucin calcify and they will give you an impression of calcification inside the dilated ductal system. So the differentiation between IPMN and very dilated PD in a chronic pancreatitis can be tricky sometimes. But incidence of IPMN like this presentation is not very high. So there are mimickers of pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma, mass forming chronic pancreatitis, focal autoimmune pancreatitis. I'm not going into the details of these things, but paraduodenal pancreatitis is an entity which is diagnosed mostly in recent times. And there is an entity called obstructing chronic pancreatitis, which can mimic obstructing ampullary mass or an IPMN. So chronic pancreatitis is a risk factor for pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma. When it comes to tropical pancreatitis, it is into the tune of 8.3% to 10% in many literatures. So mass forming chronic pancreatitis, 27 to 50% of chronic pancreatitis presents with localized mass, and more than 70% occurs in the pancreatic head, and presentation overlap between pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma and inflammatory mass. And CT will allow accurate differentiation in 77% cases only. So I think we have to think of further investigation beyond CT scan in a patient with chronic pancreatitis and a mass lesion. That is why I put this discussion. So imaging features of mass forming pancreatitis, hypoattenuating or hypoenhancing mass on multi-detector CT, ISO or hypo-intense mass on T1 weighted MR, ISO or hyper-intense mass at T2 weighted MR. So it can be seen in pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma as well as in mass forming chronic pancreatitis. So features favoring mass-forming chronic pancreatitis over pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma, the parenchymal calcifications and pseudocyst, duct penetrating sign, I will come to it later, collateral branch duct dilatation, and pancreatic duct to parenchyma ratio of less than 0.34. These are the features favoring a mass-forming pancreatitis over a pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma. So this is the duct penetrating sign. You can see you have to demonstrate the pancreatic duct in its full length. You can see a smooth narrowing of the pancreatic duct that traverses the pancreatic mass without abrupt obstruction. So when there is duct obstruction, it is suggestive of a malignant mass, whereas duct penetrating sign is a sign of mass forming chronic pancreatitis. The duct may be smoothly narrowed or it may be of normal caliber, and it is having 96% specificity for inflammatory mass in the head of pancreas, and it is better visualized on MRCP. So as Shankar suggested, MRI has got an upper hand in patients with chronic pancreatitis when you have diagnostic confusion between an inflammatory mass versus carcinoma. The collateral duct dilatation, the dilatation of the side branch, side branch in the uninvolved or distal pancreas. The dilatation is secondary to a traction effect from fibrosis rather than mass effect from neoplasia. So this is the collateral duct dilatation. The imaging findings which favors malignancy include duct to parenchyma ratio of greater than 0.34, displaced calcification in patient with CCP. This is what Dr. Patta was mentioning. A displaced calcifications in a patient with chronic pancreatitis is suggestive of malignancy. If you can demonstrate the double duct sign, vessel encasement, vessel deformity, SMA to SMV ratio greater than 1, all these are favoring malignancy over an inflammatory mass. So this is the displaced calcification. The second image shows the displaced calcification in a patient with malignant mass in a chronic pancreatitis. So these are a summary of findings: mass forming pancreatitis versus pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma. So mass lesion in head of pancreas, as already mentioned, inflammatory mass of more than 4 centimeters occur in up to 75% of patients requiring surgery. The signs and symptoms overlap, leading to diagnostic confusion. There is high index of suspicion of malignancy. You should have a very high index of suspicion, and development of new symptoms in already established chronic pancreatitis, like worsening of pain, weight loss despite good diabetic control. Pancreatic cancer may be missed in around 2 to 4% of patients undergoing ductal drainage procedures. Even after a phrase procedure, if you diagnose malignancy, you have already made a disseminated cancer out of it. 5 to 10% of patients who underwent resection for suspected pancreatic cancer proves to be only chronic pancreatitis on histopathology. So you should suspect cancer in tropic pancreatitis. The first clinical presentation late in life, development of jaundice or recurrent cholangitis, change in pain pattern, nutritional deterioration, worsening of diabetes, presence of bowel obstruction. So most of the time, the pancreatic cancer in tropical calcipancreatitis are diagnosed in a late stage, and the curative treatment is often unsuccessful. Preoperative identification of cancer is based on CT appearance, which reveals obvious tumor with vascular invasion, high CA19-9 level, the fine needle cytology, and presence of jaundice in a head mass of levels greater than 5 milligram per deciliter suggests development of pancreatic cancer. So alcoholic pancreatitis, the risk increases with duration of illness, and 1.8% at 10 years and 4% at 20 years. This is the answer to Dr. Patta's question. So when malignancy arises in CCP, the relatively enhancing compared to atrophic fat replaced gland, area of enhancing strictures in a dilated PD could represent a malignancy. Diagnosis is more difficult in hugely dilated system. You may miss a small malignancy arising in these ducts. can have multiple lesions at different sites. You may be targeting one area, there may be lesion in the distal part of pancreas, can have disseminated disease without a definite mass even on exploration. I have had occasions in which I didn't see any pancreatic mass lesion, but patient had disseminated pancreatic adenocarcinoma. And prognosis is poor compared to de novo cancer. So this is one patient presented with gastric outlet obstruction, no obvious mass demonstrated on CT, but when we operated, patient was having an uncinate process mass on a background of CCP. We did a Whipple's procedure. You can see the stomach spouting out of the wound immediately after opening the abdomen. So this is one patient, I had to do a total pancreatectomy. Patient was having two masses, one in the head and other in the tail region. So there are many studies how to diagnose mass lesion, pancreatic cancer in a patient with CCP and mass. One study is from Dr. Ramesh Unit. Dr. Shanavas published his article in Indian Journal of Gastroenterology. So he has compared the role of platelet lymphocyte ratio and CA19-9 in differentiating benign from malignant head masses. So what they found is when you have the platelet lymphocyte ratio above 161, they have a high chance of malignancy. When it is less than 100, the chance of malignancy is less. So platelet lymphocyte ratio can be used to differentiate adenocarcinoma from inflammatory mass on a background of CCP with a better sensitivity, specificity, positive predictive value, and negative predictive value compared to CA19-9 value. Because CA19-9 value can be high in patients with cholangitis, or in some patients they can have absence of CA19-9 elevation in especially a patient with the Lewy blood group antigen negative patients. But they all targeted the head lesions rather than the entire pancreatic lesions. The other studies from Stanley, which I mentioned earlier, so they have shown some predictors of malignancy in chronic pancreatitis with head mass. So they have looked into many variables and they found CA19-9 value of 127, total bilirubin of 5.8 and above, and mine pancreatic duct dilatation 11.5 centimeters. I think it's millimeters. They have written it as centimeters. I don't think it's. And the CPD dimension more than 14.5 millimeters. All has got a very high predictive value for pancreatic head cancer. So a serum bilirubin more than 0.8, CA19-9 value of more than 127, main pancreatic duct dilatation more than 11.5 mm, CPD more than 14.5 mm are associated with the sensitivity and specificity for predicting malignancy in patients with chronic calcific pancreatitis and head mass. So in patients who has unexplained pancreatic duct strictures, the features of malignancy will be duct enhancement at the transition site, abrupt transition with the duct penetrating sign, and segment stricture longer than 6 mm, and decreased attenuation in upstream pancreatic parenchyma. We may see multiple strictures in chronic pancreatitis, and most of them are simple inflammatory strictures. But if they show signs of any of these, you have to suspect malignancy and you have to take targeted biopsy during endoscopic ultrasound or even during open surgery when you do a drainage procedure. So this is the duct to parenchyma ratio which I was mentioning. So it is done by using the endoscopic ultrasound. They measure the pancreatic duct to parenchyma ratio. If it is more than 0.34, they represents marked upstream dilatation with marked parenchymal atrophy. So mild duct dilatation with mild parenchymal atrophy is seen in inflammatory mass. So in mass forming chronic pancreatitis, the decision making, you may recur, ultrasound is not useful. EUS with targeted biopsies will help. Contrast enhanced endoscopic ultrasound will help to differentiate both biopsy from hypoenhancing and hypovascular areas. EUS elastography, it's a very interesting investigation. We have one recent patient who came with a EUS elastography suggesting mass lesion malignancy in the pancreas, but in spite of repeated attempt, we could not get a positive biopsy. But finally, we did a transabdominal CT-guided biopsy, as Dr. Patel was suggesting, that showed a mass lesion showing adenocarcinoma. So EUS elastography is a very specific investigation in patients suspected of malignancy. So MDCT is better for visualization of parenchymal calcification, parenchymal atrophy, duct strictures, vessel encasement, and peripancreatic spread and metastasis. MRI and MRCP is used for problem solving. Like duct penetrating sign is better demonstrated, better lesion visualization in case of dilated duct without a mass demonstrated on CT. MR elastography again can differentiate malignancy from chronic inflammation. The neoplasm may exhibit higher stiffness than chronic inflammation because they contain more desmoplastic areas. So this is the algorithm by which you proceed in a patient with suspected pancreatic head mass. You do a HR-CT with or without MRI or MRCP for morphology and resectability. The pancreatic head mass showing pancreatic calcification, ductal dilatation, the classical chain of plaques with strictures and dilatation, which favors pancreatitis over pancreatic carcinoma, and you correlate with clinical history and CA19A. If there is a pancreatic head mass with or without ductal dilatation, but without pancreatic calcification or chain of plaque, that favors a pancreatic cancer. So you can consider EUS, FNA, or FNA-C. If it shows chronic pancreatitis, you may consider organ preserving surgeries. If there is pancreatic carcinoma suspected, you do a resectional surgery. If there is persistent doubt, as Dr. Paris suggested, you do a PET-CT. And if there is persistent doubt, if everything is not suggesting, you can do exploratory laparotomy, intraoperative frozen section, and proceed accordingly. So a few words about deranged LFT. You can have intrapancreatic fibrosis of bile duct, like Snipes syndrome. You can have, it may be due to inflammatory mass per se, or due to pancreatic cancer. And rarely you can have associated biliary anomalies in the form of choledochal cyst. I have operated 3 patients with chronic pancreatitis with associated choledochal cyst. Weight loss in chronic pancreatitis may be due to inadequate pain control, leading to poor intake, malabsorption, poorly controlled diabetes, development of malignancy. And weight loss is usually gradual in chronic calcium pancreatitis and occurs in the early stages of disease before steatorrhea develops. But weight loss is very rapid in patients with pancreatic cancer. So looking at having a pancreatic head cancer rather than an inflammatory mass or an IPMN. So the indications for surgery: intractable pain, suspicion of malignancy, non-resolving common bile duct or duodenal stenosis, splenic vein occlusion, persistent or symptomatic pseudocyst, pancreatic fistula ascites, unresponsive to non-surgical management. So I think that will be the end of my discussion. Anything to be clarified, we can have discussion with the moderators.
Before I open it to Thiru, Dr. Shankar, and Pari, I have 2 questions. Because one question is, do you find pseudocysts of this size in chronic pancreatitis? Generally, because
very rarely seen.
Acute or chronic pancreatitis is what an entity which we see. Second thing is, of course, I was just looking for, in relation to this case, whether we are coming anywhere to cystic pathology, because that's what, whether cystic, whether pseudocysts can turn malignant or you have cystic neoplasm is some literature. Because when the whole thing in this particular patient is the cystic look which changed or which diverted our attention, or it made life difficult for us. If it is not there, it is solid, it can be easy. Yeah, Dr. Thiru and Dr. Shankar.
Radha, I fully agree with you. That is where the whole confusion has come, and we could not get at the diagnosis even after doing a repeated end ultrasound. You should ask Prathapan what he has done with the case.
No, sir, I have not done anything. I am just waiting for the final opinion from the house. So that's why I said in the beginning, I am sitting here as the final MCH exam going candidate. So I will plan according to your wishes. I may order a PET scan if you really suspect, because they have to pay around 18,000 rupees outside. It may not be possible, but we have to get some biopsies. So being an inflammatory, inflammatory component, I think we have to wait. So I may think of some stenting. We may do a short metal stenting that is available in our unit, and then do accordingly.
How long you are planning to wait for the cystic lesion, the inflammatory cystic lesion? How long you are planning to wait?
I think we have to take a decision very fast, because that cyst is not 100% suggestive of pseudocyst. We may have to consider it as a cystic neoplasm on either on a background of CCP, or we may have to take it as a part of pancreatic cancer and proceed accordingly. If we get a biopsy by repeated endoscopic ultrasound, we may consider neoadjuvant therapy.
Shankar.
Yes, sir. I also agree that we don't get such a big pseudocyst in chronic pancreatitis. Usually the pseudocysts are intrapancreatic and small in size, 1 to 2 centimeters. The one explanation for that cystic lesion is either there could be a small rupture of a dilated side branch, which would have caused extra pancreatic collection. Still, I have IPMN as a possibility, because US guided bioaspiration revealed a CEA value of more than 500. Am I correct, Pradhavan?
Yeah, CEA value is high. That suggests a neoplastic process. So when the value is above,
mostly a mucinous neoplastic.
Okay.
So in such an atypical case, still I would entertain the possibility of an IPMN. Probably in this case, a malignant IPMN. That's also possibilities there.
Because
so
if you diagnose malignant IPMN, you may have to consider a different surgery from a patient with a chronic pancreatitis. So that is one important issue here. But patient is having very high diabetes. Even if you do a total pancreatectomy, it is not going to affect much. But the decision making is easier, and the prognosis is better when you have an IPMN as a diagnosis, because IPMN with adenocarcinoma has got a better prognosis than chronic calcium pancreatitis with adenocarcinoma.
Ari?
I would go for a repeat US guided biopsy.
I also think so.
Yeah. In my mind, it looks like adenocarcinoma developing in the background of chronic pancreatitis. Looking at the huge stones, I strongly feel there is a chronic pancreatitis which was going on. And then looking at the CA99 in 5,000 and CA more than 500, I fairly strongly feel that there is, sorry, yeah?
I have a suggestion. Even in patients without any malignancy, when you do chronic pancreatitis surgery, you may see very high values of CA99. I have some 1 lakh value for a 100% normal pancreatic duct. So I think the fluid CA99 has no value in diagnosing a malignancy. But CEA has got a value, or KRAS or some other micro analysis you can have. I think the CA99 value, you cannot proceed intraoperatively, but CEA, agree.
For the benefit of the post-graduation residents who are around, Shankar has created out it could be a rupture of the pancreatic duct causing that cystic lesion. Are we trying to contemplate any endoscopic therapy to bring down that cyst quickly so that we can go ahead with the malignant surgery proper? I want it from the others. Patta? Radha can say that.
No. Sir, actually, I don't contemplate, because I have, because you have preempted again my question in the sense that, okay, if it comes out a malignancy, what is that you're going to do, Pradhavan? What surgery? If it doesn't come out as malignancy, what is that you're going to do? Because I really do not know. See,
I think we cannot 100% rely on preoperative biopsies.
No, see, you have a tendency, because with the circumstances of Calicut Medical College, whatever, you may have a tendency of laparotomy and proceed if you do not have a biopsy. It be on your mind. If so, what is that you will be planning in case? I mean, what surgery are you planning in case? Is it possible?
No, I will opt for even if it is a chronic pancreatitis in view of very high suspicion of malignancy, we will have to proceed with the Whipples. I think there are two difficult situations in this patient. One, the plane with the superior mesenteric vessels. Second, active inflammation, which can produce very difficult dissections in that area. You may not be able to dissect the vessels away from the lesions and all. So third problem is you may land up with a R2 resections rather than going for an R0 resections. So R2 resection has no benefit as far as pancreatic cancer. Even R1 resection has no benefit as far as pancreatic cancer is concerned. So if you are not going to benefit out of surgery, I don't think doing Whipples is not very good idea.
Answering Dr. Thiru's question regarding endotherapy, there still is a possibility of the whole thing to be benign only. In such a case, you stent the bile duct and do an endotherapy for pseudocysts, and it's possible that the patient can become.
I'm trying to say you can stent the pancreatic duct also by an endoscopist. In case, as Shankar said, it is only a rupture of this thing, the pseudocyst is likely to come down quickly. No, it is only for the benefit of postgraduates I'm asking.
The imaging features is not very suggestive of ductal disruption.
Yeah.
I think we will have cases, as Dr. Thiru's mentioning, we have all sorts of presentation in chronic pancreatitis. So just wait for those cases. I can have more issues with chronic pancreatitis.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, pancreatic duct rupture is one discussion we are planning.
Pari, what surgery will you do in this patient if it's a malignancy and if it's not a malignancy? Shankar will answer that next.
Yeah. If I come to know it's a malignancy, most likely I have very low chance of offering any surgery for him, because I'm not sure about the CT scan, but if it is a malignancy in a background of chronic pancreatitis, I keep the surgery at a very, very high threshold because of several reasons. One, as such, the prognosis is very poor, higher chance of positive margins. You do a Whipples, fantastic Whipples, and then you get disappointed seeing a positive margin, and then higher chance of intraoperative hemorrhage, and then hence increasing the mortality in a otherwise case which has a very poor prognosis, the post-op anyway. So I have a very, very high threshold of suggesting surgery for these patients. I suggest surgery for malignancy with chronic pancreatitis only if the patient is a good risk, has got a lot of symptoms which will be palliated, and then I am sure that the surgery is going to be EC1 and a small malignancy where the chance of having a positive margin is low. These are the conditions where I would probably offer surgery. In all those conditions, doesn't seem to exist in this case. So I probably may not be very keen to offer surgery in this patient.
Shankar?
So there is a question in the chat box: staging laparoscopy and intraoperative frozen. I think that is a good idea because we may see dissemination, liver metastasis. If we have not done a PET scan, that may be helpful. If you have already done a PET scan and it doesn't show any metastasis anywhere, I think the diagnosed staging laparoscopy will not help much because we may not be able to dissect much in this case, because the plane is very difficult to create with a laparoscopy, and if there is a hemorrhage, suddenly it's very difficult to control and all. I think it's not a good idea to have a staging laparoscopy, but you can have a frozen section if you have intraoperative ultrasound along with your laparoscope attached or laparoscopic ultrasound.
Shankar? What
Yes, sir.
strategy?
No, pancreatic cancer generally carries poor prognosis. So once upon a time, the attitude towards pancreatic cancer was a nihilistic attitude. But we have come a long way from that nihilistic attitude from as far as the pancreatic cancer is concerned. But a pancreatic cancer arising the background of chronic pancreatitis is a different disease. It carries much more poorer prognosis. So in this particular case, I will not go for surgery because the mass lesion seems to be quite big in size, and because of the active inflammation. So this is not a case I will proceed with Whipple's operation, but that doesn't mean that I will never do a surgery for pancreatic cancer in the chronic pancreatitis. That's not my answer. Selected cases still I would offer surgery, but I'll make sure that there is no metastasis in the form of doing a PET scan. I will do a diagnostic laparoscopy to rule out peritoneal disease, and I will counsel the patient very clearly regarding the prognosis and options available, and then I will proceed. As for whether there is a role of neoadjuvant chemotherapy to be given and give a test of time and see the biology of the cancer is very individualistic. I don't think we don't have any data.
I think the biology. I think the biology itself is showing an aggressive malignancy, because she was not having any problem for the last 7 years, suddenly developing pain, and all of a sudden within 2 months you are having a very different appearance of the lesions. So a rapidly progressing pancreatic cancer, I think biology is poor. You can select her out of
It's
your...
a poor biology of the tumor. As we look at this case without any bias, this case has got a lot of things against surgery, because we will not be able to give either an R0 or even an R1 resection for this patient as it goes, because there is a cystic lesion which is suggestive of an inflammation, superadded to a chronic pancreatitis already, and pushing the superior mesenteric vein and that confluence laterally. How far we are going to see, we'll be able to dissect it out without causing any problem. I think surgery for this patient should be taken with a pinch of salt. This is my opinion.
Okay, I have a suggestion, Prathapan. Till now, we have no confirmation of biopsy. Although you want to repeat endo ultrasound and PET CT, it does not show again. Shouldn't we, or maybe I may consider opening up. I may consider biopsying the lesion. If it comes out as benign, I will decompress it. I do a loop there and then a loop on another cyst. I'll open the pancreatic duct and do LPJ. Along with, I'll do a hepaticojejunostomy. Will you agree with me?
No, if we have to consider palliation alone, because patient has only biliary
of palliation. I'm talking about we are going.
Surgery,
we have no biopsy. We have no any proof. We don't know where the dealing is benign or malignant. Nowhere we have any confirmation.
But I have got a question for you. It's such a big lesion. There's so many enhancing lesions inside the cyst. What you take one piece shows no malignancy. If the rest of the thing is having malignancy, what's your...
No, on table. See,
on
actually,
table itself, I'm telling.
If you say the thing, when they do endo ultrasound, there is fluid in that lesion. There's fluid. See, I mean, why do you get fluid in a lesion in a?
Sir, I will aspirate at least. If I aspirate the fluid and it is showing thick mucinous material, definitely it is a mucinous lesion and you have to take it out. But if it's a malignant lesion, doing a non-curative resection or doing a ductal drainage procedure, both can be dangerous. I think doing surgery, either you can opt for a simple palliative procedure, because we have interventional radiologists in our department, so we will opt only short metallic stent and adjuvant chemo if possible. I don't think she will respond or she will come out of this situation with chemo, because the tumor is very aggressive, I think. Second issue, intraoperatively, you have to open the cyst fully and see the area inside the cyst and take biopsy from individual lesions. Then only you can say you are dealing with entirely benign, because it's a similar situation you have in ulcerative colitis with malignancy, because you may not be targeting the area when you take simple biopsy from an area of that cystic lesion. I think that is not a good idea. In
the
this
bargain,
case,
when you open the cyst, trying to pick up biopsy from each this thing, you're likely to cause a pancreatic ascites subsequently. You'll not be able to close that.
Sir,
Number one.
No, sir. If it is a malignancy, it is disseminated. We can't do anything about it. See,
can't do
what does
anything.
pancreatic ascites mean? What anything means? So the idea is idea is we can't rest till we get a diagnosis of malignancy.
But it is a difficult
Not
situation now.
malignancy unless it's confirmed. Yeah,
Radha, it is a
Pari,
difficult
then,
situation now. Radha, it is a difficult situation now. To prove it as benign is not correct. It's very difficult to prove that it is benign. To prove it is malignancy, it's a disseminated disease. In both ways, you better leave the patient and palliate for the symptoms alone. If the patient has got a high bilirubin level, I have not come in the initial stages, history of cholangitis and all, you must drain the biliary duct and leave her alone. That is what I will suggest.
Sir, I think you meant intra-frozen section, right?
yes.
Radhakrishna, sir?
Yeah.
Sir, as far as my interaction with the pathologist, I understand that diagnosing a adenocarcinoma and the background of chronic pancreatitis requires extremely experienced pathologists. It's like a super specialty within pathology. So it is extremely difficult for the pathologist to say with any conviction whether there is malignancy or rather there is no malignancy in a specimen that you give for a frozen section. So probably that is probably not a good idea at all, relying on a frozen section to say that there is no malignancy, because they are totally handicapped to say there is no malignancy on a frozen section. So it requires a super specialist level pathologist to say whether there is a malignancy or not. So we can't really go by frozen section.
No, my point is, aren't we condemning her to whatever if you do not have a diagnosis?
We are not condemning. We are palliating her jaundice. She is a fast-growing malignancy. What to do? It is the diseases like that. In the background, we are not able to come to a conclusion. We are not denying anything to the patient. We are palliating the patient for what she has come. We are going to palliate pain. We are going to palliate obstructive jaundice.
Yes,
that does not mean that we condemn the patient.
No, shall I put it the other way? Pata sir,
yeah.
Do you contemplate any curative surgery for this patient? Are you contemplating a curative surgery for this?
I'm not contemplating curative surgery. My point is, we are not able to get a biopsy, either percutaneous or even the endoscopic thing. Now, if on opening the whatever the pancreatic cyst and we know it is a malignancy, we are anyway, resection is not possible. We're going to leave her like that. Pancreatic aside is a possibility, and disseminate, because it's like, we are going in, we're finding it disseminate, closing. We've done it so many times for so many malignancies, unplanned. This is a planned one. If we know that is malignancy, the resection surgery is next to impossible. By chance, if it is not a malignancy, by whatever, even super special pathology, all come together and say it's not a malignancy, possibly we are giving her some treatment option.
A chance of operating on a possible malignancy, again a drainage procedure. That is all it is. You cannot prove absolutely that it is a benign pathology.
Yeah, that's right.
But I agree one thing with you. Recently, I've got two patients who are with the oncologist Raja. Actually, one patient had a malignancy with a second deposit in the liver. The other patient has multiple deposits in the nearby area. Both are given chemotherapy. They are alive for 1.5 years now. They have gained weight. The appetite has improved. The pain has come down. So there is nothing wrong in proving a malignancy by opening. If you are able to prove it, you can always give a palliative chemotherapy, which is highly helpful now. I got two patients right now in my case, under me. One Raja, who is the oncologist, is giving this thing. Yes, so I thought I would share it with you.
Yes, sir. My opinion is I will go for one more attempt to get a tissue diagnosis. So I'll go for an endoscopic ultrasound once again, biopsy, and with maybe an experienced person, and take all the precautions, those protocol, aspirate the
My point again is once ultrasound.
Aspirate the we have to first aspirate the pseudocyst, decompress it, and then target the solid lesion. So it's a technically challenging thing, and we have to take all the measures to make a tissue diagnosis. So I'm not for surgeries, and definitely I agree with Pari, because pancreatic cancer in the background of chronic pancreatitis is a nightmare for the pathologist. they will not be able to give any useful information, and there's a lot of stress for them.
So Prathapan, as a final comment, now that you have had a panel giving various opinions, so what is that you could get from the discussion? Did you get any light at the end of the tunnel? And if so, what?
Yes, sir. I will opt for a US aspiration repeat. I will suggest complete aspiration of cyst and to some biopsy from the lesion if possible. Second, I will do stenting. I think we will opt for a short metallic stenting, because if there is a metal stent, you need not worry about repeated removal. And if it happens to be improvement on neoadjuvant protocol, I think we can opt for a Whipple's later, because a long stenting may produce difficulty during your surgery. I think these are the two things which I plan now. I think we'll opt for a PET scan. I think we can opt for a PET, but with a value of 273, or if the repeat value is showing very high value, we may suggest staging laparoscopy and planning accordingly. Otherwise, we will opt for a PET only if it is needed, because they have to pay. Other investigations are all available in my department or in our college.
So any final comments before we close? Pari, you want to say something?
But I'm seeing a lot of my friends. I'm convalescing from a COVID. Whole of my family got COVID.
Okay.
This is nearly the 29th day after me diagnosed to have COVID. I was
So
admitted
you're
at
in
the
Nellore
hospital.
or in Chennai, sir?
No, I am in Chennai. I have retired on March 15th.
Okay.
I finished 70 years.
Right.
After that, they reappointed me there. I was going in between. The COVID was florid. I couldn't go. Somehow we got it, all the three in the family, myself, my wife, and my mother-in-law. We got admitted in the same room in the Bilroth Hospital by the help of Sivaraj. We all came out properly. Now nearly a month is over.
Okay.
I'm very happy to see
Nice.
you
Oh
all.
God.
Nice to hear that, sir. Nice to hear that. Nice. We're happy to see you back. Yeah. Any final comments?
care, sir.
Yeah. Shankar.
No, I just told Thiru sir to take care.
Okay. If
I
there
am
was
literally irritated by taking all these medicines. Now, one thing what I have found out is they say it is a Delta variant which has infected me, which has increased my anti-hyperglycemic drug to the double the level. They say it has got a knack of attacking the
Beta cell.
beta cells of the pancreas. That's what they say. I was taking only glycomet GP1. Now I'm taking 2. That is the only difference. I am on double blood thinners. We are comfortable. I'm only irritated in sitting in the house and doing nothing. Now I've come down to Bangalore to be with my children. Even that, it is intoxicating. I'm not able to tolerate this idleness, but God will help us.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Nice of seeing you, Shankar, Prathapan after a long time. Pari, I did not know. Okay.
He was my contemporary, you know. He was in PGI.
Very good. Today morning thing also I saw Pari. Now, am I correct? Morning there was a meeting. Morning there was a meeting.
Evening 5 o'clock there was a meeting.
Leaf meeting.
Yeah, I was there.
I had something to say. This thing was not working properly regarding the pericarditis. We'll talk in a different forum. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Dr. Shankar, the Thiru, the Pari.
Thank you, sir.
There's an interesting case as again. Prathapan, we'll see you again coming Saturday with another interesting case. Thanks, everyone.
Hope so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.